Hey guys, Justin Coffin for the 330 Sports Show. We've been doing our AFC North preview shows, and joining me for this one, and correct me if I mispronounce the name, but it's Ali Hysong, correct?
You got it. That's
All right. Very good. So Ali, first time on our show, but was kind enough to join us on a Wednesday night before the season. NFL obviously kicks off tomorrow night with the Cowboys and Buccaneers, but Browns start this Sunday in Kansas City. So Ali, first of all, tell us about yourself and your podcast and what you do.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first and foremost, thanks for having me. I'm happy to be here. I actually just wrapped up my podcast a few minutes ago. I'm the co-host of the Here We Go Brownies podcast. It's a show by the fans for the fans. We cover the Browns, of course. I'm a diehard Cleveland Browns fan. I live down here in South Carolina now. Brought my fandom down here to the South with me. But we do cover college football and the entire NFL, especially a deep dive on the AFC North. But we are a Browns-focused podcast, of course. Here we go, Brownies. But hey, anytime I get to talk a little bit of sports, a little bit of football, it's a win for me.
Very good. How's your you're a Buckeye fan too, right?
Oh, a diehard.
How's that down in the South?
You know what? Actually, there's a ton of Buckeyes down here.
Okay.
When I first moved down to South Carolina, I moved out of college. I went to Capital University in Columbus.
Yep.
After college, I moved down south for zero reason at all, other than the fact that I needed to get out of Ohio. And I moved to Charleston. And when I told people from Charleston that I was from Ohio, they were immediately like, get out of here. We don't want you here. And then when I moved to Hilton Head, and then now I'm in Myrtle Beach, they were much more welcoming because it's more of a tourist focused area.
Sure.
So there's a lot of Buckeyes, there's a lot of Browns fans. There's just a lot of, quite frankly, there's a lot of Northerners that live here. So you get a lot of Ohio, Pennsylvania, New York, and all that fun stuff.
Okay.
So very welcoming here in the dirty Myrtle, South Carolina.
Very good. Very good. So last year, obviously a weird year with COVID and stuff, but do you make it up to games during the season?
I didn't last year, of course.
Right.
And I didn't make it in 2019 either, just because I had been so busy with work.
Sure.
And I really had just moved down to South Carolina, so it really wasn't too much of an option. But 2018, I made it to a couple, which was just a lot of fun. And I'm really hoping that this year I can make it home much more often than I have in the past.
Absolutely. Okay. All right. Very good. So let's start off initially with the Browns, and let me have your initial thoughts and impressions on Stefanski and maybe the rest of the coaching staff.
Well, I think it all starts, and I get made fun of on my podcast because I say the word alignment so much, but coming into last season when they brought in Andrew Berry, Kevin Stefanski, and he hired his entire coaching staff, there was so much alignment within the organization. And bringing in players in the personnel groupings to be able to match his style of offense and to match the Joe Woods schematics on the defensive side of the ball. So I think it's really started with alignment within the organization culturally, personnel wise, coaching wise, and then to bring it back with the continuity of the entire coaching staff. It just emphasizes the structure that Andrew Berry has put into place within the organization. So as we approach this year, just looking at Kevin Stefanski and the entire coaching staff, you have to feel pretty good about it. You've got to feel pretty good. This is the first time in what I can remember where you're running it back with the entire coaching staff. I remember years past where, you bring it back with the head coach, but the coordinators are different. Or, you've got a new play caller, and that's not the case. So it's really putting the entire team in a position of strength going into the season.
I like that word alignment. It's kind of nice because it's like the three main pieces too. A lot of people will say in your organization are your quarterback, your head coach, and your GM. And the Browns seem to have at least nailed them all, at least right now. So what's your thoughts on Baker?
Look, you know what? I know a ton of people are saying Baker's got to go out and prove it. I'm not of that mindset. I think Baker already did. He's coming into a great position here where he's got, he's got the former head coach of the year. He's got his play callers. He's got everything that he had last year, and he had such a successful season last year. I don't think he has to go out and prove anything. I think he just needs to do what he did again, right? I think he just needs to continue to be Baker Mayfield. So I'm excited. I look forward to a big season out of Baker. I'm looking at 4,000 passing yards possibly. I think he definitely hits a personal goal on that front. I think this is going to be a huge year for him, of course, as long as everybody can remain healthy, etc. coming into that same structure and that continuity, I think it's really going to put him in a position to win.
Very good. Very good. What do you think this team's biggest strength and biggest weaknesses are? You can go with either one first. So what do you think the biggest strengths, biggest weakness?
Well, I think I'm going to start with weakness so I can end on a positive.
Okay.
I'm going to go with special teams as it currently stands right now.
Okay.
Now, and I'm not saying the return game. I'm really putting an emphasis right now on the kicking game.
Sure.
Cody Parkey goes out with the injury. His season has ended with the Cleveland Browns. And you have Chase McLaughlin in there, who shined a lot of promise in the earlier preseason games, but down in Atlanta, not so much. So I still think there's some question marks on that front. But on that same note, I have a ton of faith in Coach Prefer. He knows what he's doing. And my thought with special teams is you just have to be neutral. Just be neutral.
Mm-hmm.
Don't cause any issues with the offense and defense, and you're going to blend right in. If you're good, that's just a bonus. Just be neutral. So I think that right now, as it currently stands right here, right now, that's probably the biggest weakness. Biggest strength, does it have to be, on offense or defense? Because
whatever you want.
Honestly, I think the biggest strength for this team right now is they're running it back. The same personnel, the same coaching staff. Now, of course, they add a ton in free agency and in the draft, but they didn't lose anybody. They didn't lose anybody significant. So I think just that continuity coming back, the same system, the same structure is probably their biggest strength. That's just not something that typically happens, especially with a playoff caliber team. Last season, a lot of times when you make the playoffs and you've got a good offense or a good defense, you lose a lot of those position coaches to, promotions throughout the NFL. And that just wasn't the case. So I think they're coming back. Really, their coaching, their alignment within the organization is their current strength.
I love it. You use the word alignment. No one should make fun of you for that.
I say I'm Ali Alignment Hysong. Ali short for alignment. That's the joke.
I like it. I'm going to borrow that word. I'm going to start
using
it.
It's yours.
All right. So let's talk a little bit about the wide receivers, because obviously when Odell went down last year, that was a big point of contention. Well, this offense is taken off now that Odell's not there. And, a lot of people were like, well, that's finally when things like got in sync. They didn't have a preseason or an off season. They didn't, and different things like that. So your take on Odell and what he means to this team, and, as well as the other receivers, Jarvis and, basically the whole receiving core.
Well, I think that the notion that this team is better without Odell Beckham Jr. is egregious. And I just throw that out the window. As you mentioned, there was no offseason really last year. There was no preseason. The training camp was really limited. They weren't able to gel in the way that they probably really wanted to. So at the point where Odell Beckham Jr. goes down is really just when the offense started to come together. It had nothing to do with whether or not he was on the field. That's just when they started to gel. So one thing that I said as we came into this season, as we looked at free agents, who's coming back, what are we going to do in the draft? One thing that stood out to me in the wide receiver room was there is a sense of redundancy. You have a lot of players that can do a lot of the same things. And really prior to losing Kaderil Hodge, you've got Kaderil Hodge, Hollywood Higgins, Jarvis Landry. A lot of those guys can do kind of the same thing. Now you throw Odell Beckham Jr. in there, he can take the top off of a defense. You add Anthony Schwartz into that room, who's just obviously game-changing speed, world-class speed. And opposing defenses are going to have to account for that. They're going to have to put a guy on that. Demetric Felton, who I know they have listed as a running back right now, but can kind of be in there as a slot receiver. I think they get rid of some of that redundancy. They've got Donovan Peoples-Jones, who can be that big-bodied receiver. I like it. As long as everybody can remain healthy, I think it's one of the better receiving core in the NFL.
Okay. All right. Very good. Sticking with the sort of receiving position, but switching to tight end, who do you think is going to be the best tight end at this season's end out of the three?
That's a tough one. That's a really difficult question, but I am going to go with David Njoku.
Okay.
I think that this is a very big season for David. Going into last season, Harrison Bryant coming in as a rookie, he had some issues with ball security and just, kind of meshing into this offense. Austin Hooper, I think, did well, but I don't think he played the role that we all thought he probably would. Now, I think he is going to take on a larger role this season, but my thought, and I remember when David Njoku requested that trade.
Yep.
Everybody was saying, well, where's the perfect place for him? I'm like, it's Cleveland. He's the perfect complement to Austin Hooper. Austin Hooper's kind of your just down the seam stereotypical tight end. David Njoku, he can almost be a big bodied receiver that can make those basketball style catches. They complement each other perfectly. He's worked on his blocking. He's worked on his catching ability. I think David Njoku at the end of the season is going to be the best tight end on this roster.
Very nice. Okay. All right. Let's talk about the two probably biggest strengths of this team, arguably the offensive line and the running game. So I'll just have you take it. Whichever one you want to tackle first, go for it.
Well, I think it starts with the offensive line. Now, don't get me wrong. Kareem Hunt, Nick Chubb, Dearness Johnson. I'll throw Demetric Felton and Andy Janovich into that mold as well. They can't be who they are without this offensive line. Now, I think they're very, very, elite players. Don't get me wrong, and I'll get into that in a second. But this offensive line is, in my eyes, the best in the National Football League. You know, you've got your two ends. You've got Jack Conklin, Jedrick Wills, who I think Jed does need to kind of grow into his role a little bit. Last season, he was coming off of right tackles, switching from right tackle to left tackle in the NFL. Pretty big transition. So I think he's still got a lot to learn and a lot to prove. But really, that interior, that offensive line is just insane. J.C. Treader, Joel Bitonio, Wyatt Teller. I remember going into last season, and on my podcast, I had Nick Shook from the NFL Network. I asked him, I said, what are they going to do at the right guard position? And he's like, honestly, I don't know. Maybe throw Chris Hubbard in there. Then, here comes Wyatt Teller.
Yeah,
the
right.
Best guard in the NFL. So taking a look at that, and it doesn't get talked about enough how important Bill Callahan is to this team. So I think the entire offense, receiving, tight end, running game, everything, Baker Mayfield, it starts with the offensive line. If you don't have that brick wall there, none of this is possible. Not only are they a brick wall and they're good in pass protection, but they can also just be on the move in the screen game. And of course, they create those holes for Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt. Talking about them, I'm of the belief that we have the best backfield in the NFL, and it's not even a question. It's just by a wide margin. I think that they're both going to be, I don't have a lot to say about them because they're just that good. They're just going to go out and just run the ball down everybody's throats. And quite frankly, I'm excited to see it.
Absolutely. And they complement each other so well. They really do. With, Hunt out of the backfield, Chubb with, just continually getting better as the game goes on. So let's talk a little bit about the defensive side of the ball. Obviously a weakness last year, at least on the back end, and, sort of giving up unnecessary points, but we had a lot of guys in there because of injuries. Yeah. So possibly 9 new starters on defense this year. Besides you take out Garrett, you take out Ward, you're going to have 9 different guys in there. Talk a little bit about the defensive side of the ball and what you think your expectations for them this year.
Well, as I mentioned, you bring in Joe Woods, and if you look at it with Kevin Stefanski and what he wanted to run, Andrew Berry said, okay, in 2020, we're going to give you the personnel to run your offense. We bring in Austin Hooper, guys like that, to be able to run this offense. They couldn't put that same emphasis on the defense because money, time didn't allow for it in 2020. They do that this offseason. They add 9 new starters to this defense. I think we will be able to see on the defensive side of the ball what Kevin Stefanski did on the offensive side last year. So Joe Woods has the personnel that he wants to be able to run the style of defense that he wants to. It's that Seattle style defense. They're going to get after the quarterback, that front 7. Flat out, they're just going to get after the quarterback. And I think that's also going to free up the secondary to allow them to be more locked down. I'm excited to see Greg Newsome. He's kind of a long, rangy corner, your Richard Sherman type. Sure. And of course, I'm just pumped up about, first off, JOK. Can't wait for that guy. Malik McDowell, Tack McKinley, Jadeveon Clowney, some of those guys. I'm excited for the safeties. JJ3, Grant Delpit, I cannot wait to see. And I feel like nobody's talking about Ronnie Harrison out there and what he can contribute. So I think it's all just going to work together. Now, 9 new starters, it can take some time to gel, right? We might see some hiccups, but that's okay. That's going to happen. I think by midpoint in the season, it's going to be smooth sailing.
Very good. Very good. All right, let's go to can you give me, this is sort of a random one. Can you give me a bold prediction for the Cleveland Browns this year?
For the year. Yeah. This isn't bold, but I'm going to start with this one. I think Myles Garrett wins the Defensive Player of the Year award.
Okay.
I don't think that's bold because I think that's going to happen. It's very possible if he can stay healthy. My bold prediction actually is Tack McKinley gets double-digit sacks.
Wow. Okay.
And the reason I say that is when you take a look at what the Browns can do defensively, they talk a lot about this NASCAR package. You've got Myles Garrett, Jadeveon Clowney next to him. You've got, you could throw Malik Mcdowell or Malik Jackson there at the other defensive tackle position, but then you have Tack McKinley on the opposite side of Myles Garrett. So you got a lot of guys just rushing the quarterback. And I think that a lot of teams are going to put a much more emphasis on the three other guys that I mentioned, freeing up a Tack McKinley, who has a lot to prove. Jadeveon Clowney, does he always get home? No. But is he an elite run stopper? Of course.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to give the edge right now to Tack McKinley, and I think he gets double-digit sacks.
Very good. Okay. All right. So with that, if you think Myles Garrett's the Defensive Player of the Year, he's probably obviously the Browns' defensive MVP. So let's switch to the offensive side of the ball. Who do you think the MVP of the Browns offense at the end of the season is?
You know what? There's so many weapons. It's hard to pick,
Mm-hmm.
but all of those weapons can't be great if they don't have Baker Mayfield. So I'm going to give it to Baker Mayfield. I think he has a career year. Of course, we're going into a season where there's some question marks up in the air in terms of his contract extension, what that's going to look like, what he's worth. So could you say he's got something to prove? Sure. He's got that chip on his shoulder. I think he goes out, he executes. He has the best career of his NFL, or the best season of his NFL career. And I think he shuts up all the haters, and Baker Mayfield comes away with the MVP. Which
means he will get paid heavily. So, but that's a win for all of us. We are hoping you're right. All right. I'm going to put up the Browns schedule on the screen. And if I'm going to have you sort of give me your prediction for win-loss and maybe some, what you think might be the toughest. Now, I don't know if you can see it. I sort of wrote in my predictions very faintly on there, but I think the Browns are I see 12 wins, possibly 13 wins on this schedule, but I want your opinion on what you think, how this overall season's going to go.
Well, I started with, I went through the schedule on my show and I said, yeah, I'm going to give them 12 wins. That's what I feel comfortable with. Maybe 13. I think honestly, week 1 is going to be scary. It's going to be tough. Do I think it's possible to come away with a win? Yeah, absolutely. I do. I actually just got off of my show where I said, I think they win convincingly. However, it's going to be a tough outing. A couple other games that I have just marked as some ones. At Chargers, I think could be a tough game. They're a very good young football team. Justin Herbert, he could really be putting up some good numbers this season. They've got a great defense. At Patriots scares me a little bit as well. Yep. Those are the two that really just kind of have me spooked. And in Baltimore, I think it's going to be a tough one. I think that we sweep the Steelers, we sweep the Bengals, but I do think that we split with Baltimore.
Okay. All right. Very good. Let me go to this next then. And I want you to, out of the 4 starting quarterbacks in the AFC North, I want you to rank them 1 to 4.
Oh gosh. Okay. I hate this. No, I'm going to take off my brown and orange glasses for a moment. And I'm just basing this off of their current or their career so far. I think Lamar Jackson is probably the most talented quarterback in the AFC North right now. Now, it's going to be interesting this year because he's going to have to throw the ball, right? They don't have J.K. Dobbins. So that could change. But as it currently stands right here, right now, I'm going to give him 1. I'm going to go Baker 2, Ben 3, Joe Burrow 4.
Interesting.
And I say Joe Burrow 4 really off of the injury. He didn't get a chance to finish out his season and prove his worth. I do think he bounces back. Big Ben, I put him 3 just based off of his the injury that he had. He kind of went off a little bit last year.
Sure.
I do think watch out for the Steelers, and I hate saying that. I think that they can and will beat you. They are a team that can and will beat you. They're still very, very good. Ben Roethlisberger is still a very good quarterback. He can pick you apart. But at this point in his career, I am going to give Baker Mayfield the nod here.
Yeah, for whatever reason, I don't know. The Steelers scare me a little bit more than the Ravens do. And I think it's just based on that prior history and all their skill positions. So let's go to this now. Who will be an under the radar player for the Cleveland Browns that maybe a lot of people aren't talking about right now?
Anthony Walker on the defensive side of the ball, the linebacker. There's just so much. They had 9 defensive starters. Everybody right now is looking at that front four. It's wicked. I mean, don't get me wrong. It is absolutely insane. And of course, the secondary, you got Greg Newsome, you got Grant coming back, JJ3, Ronnie Harrison, as I mentioned, of course, Denzel Ward. You add Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. Everybody's so excited about that. And we talk about all the speed that you have to add on defense. And they went out and did that. But I think when you look at it, that middle linebacker position in Anthony Walker just went under the radar. And I don't really know why. He was one of my favorite pickups of this offseason.
Sure.
We know the impact that he had just in terms of a leadership standpoint, let alone just his on the field ability in Indianapolis. He's going to be the play caller on the defensive side of the ball here in Cleveland, and just his leadership ability and his on the field play. I'm just excited for him. And I think a lot of people don't quite know what they have in Anthony Walker.
Yeah, that's a solid pick. I like that. I think a lot of the Colts were his teammates were sad to have
Darius
lost him.
Leonard had come out and was very outwardly emotional about the loss of, or losing him to the Cleveland Browns.
Well, their losses are gained. So hopefully I like that prediction. That's a good one. So let's go now sort of to an overarching theme. Let's go to division winners, and let's just sort of go through the AFC first. So let's start with the AFC East and who you think comes out of that division.
I honestly, and I know a lot of people are saying right now that you've got Tua coming into his second year, has a lot to prove. Mac Jones, is a first-year starter. Of course, same with Zach Wilson. I still think that's a pretty tough division, right? And I think a lot of people are just kind of sleeping on it. But I'm going to give it to the Bills. They're far and away the best team in that division. Okay.
All right. What do you think about the Pats this year?
Again, they're a team that can and will beat you. They're probably not going to win they're not going to win the Super Bowl, like point blank. They're not going to make the playoffs. They're not going to be that good, but they're a sneaky good team that can and will beat you.
Okay. Let's go to maybe the weakest division of football, the AFC South.
I'm going to go with the Titans here. They have the most continuity, I suppose. Ryan Tannehill, Derrick Henry, they have an okay defense. I do like some of their receivers. You just don't know what's going on in Houston. Indianapolis, the quarterback situation's a little wonky with what's going on with the injury front, and Jacksonville, God only knows. So give me the Titans on that one.
Okay. All right. AFC West.
Yeah, I don't think this is tough at all. Give me the Chiefs.
Okay. Yeah. And we'll come back to the AFC North last. So let's go to the NFC East, or maybe some might say that's the weakest division of football.
Yeah, that's kind of the thought that I have. Again, another sneaky good team that can and will beat you is Washington. Well coached with Ron Rivera. Fitzmagic, we all know what he can do, but that defense they're pretty tough. I like them. They've got Terry McLaurin there, bringing Curtis Samuel. I kind of like them right now. Give me Washington.
All right. AFC or NFC South.
This one got me a little bit, just because there's some decent teams down there. Anybody can take the division, but I'm going to go Tampa Bay.
Okay. Yeah, that's hard to argue with the Super Bowl champs. NFC West.
The NFC is tough. The NFC is really tough. I kind of was going back and forth right on this one with the 49ers, the Rams. What do you do? I am going to go with the 49ers here. That defense alone. I think the Rams are probably a close second.
Okay.
I really almost gave them the nod, but I just like the 49ers defense too much.
Okay. All right. Very good. And then NFC North.
Packers. I'll take the Packers.
Okay. Last dance for Rodgers.
Yeah, I think so. I don't quite love The whole Chicago situation with what they're doing. I got some Fields in there, but that offense just is not great. The Vikings, watch out for them. They can probably, another team that will beat you. Detroit, though, I'm sorry. Sorry, Lions fans. I'll take the Packers.
Okay. All right. And then bringing it back to the AFC North, who is, I'll tell you what, rank the teams in order, 1 to 4.
All right. I think that's a little bit easier than the quarterback situation. I'm gonna rank the Browns number 1. I think, again, taking off my orange and brown glasses here, I think that they have the best roster, and they have the best schematics to fit their personnel. So I'm going to take the Browns number 1. Very close here on who's number 2, but I am going to go Baltimore. Very, very, very good football team. Even when they're bad, they're good. I think it's just the culture, everything that they embody. Now, pretty big loss right now with J.K. Dobbins.
Sure.
They did just sign Mark Andrews to a pretty big extension. I think he's pretty good. And then Steelers, I'm going to go 3.
Okay.
Watch out for them. Like, don't sleep on the Steelers. I hate saying that, of course, but they're also just a very good football team. And I don't think that even when they're bad, they're still good.
Absolutely.
Bengals. I'm going to go 4 here. They still have a lot to prove. I don't love that they haven't protected Joe Burrow. It came out that Jackson Carman was not ready to go, offensive tackle or offensive guard, wasn't ready to go out of Clemson, out of shape, didn't quite know the playbook, etc. They trade Billy Price and release Michael Jordan. I just don't love what they're doing. They bring in Jamar Chase. I thought they should have went Penei Sewell. I don't know. They need to protect Joe Burrow, and if they can't do that, then it's just a full reset, I think.
Okay. All right, let's go to it's so hard to say seeding and who's going to play who in the playoffs. So give me who you think will match up in the championship games. So in the AFC, who's going to play to go to the Super Bowl?
All right, in the AFC, it's tough. Yeah, it is tough to know who's going to play who. I'm going to put the Browns in the AFC Championship game against the Buffalo Bills.
Okay.
And I'm going to go with the Browns to win it.
Okay, I like it. I mean, hey, why not? Why not?
I keep my bias there, but I'm pulling for the Browns. Very
good. How about the NFC?
That's really tough one. I do think it's going to be. I think the Packers could do it, but I'm actually going to go with the 49ers and the Buccaneers, Tampa Bay, running it back. And I think Tampa Bay will make another Super Bowl appearance. All
right. So we got Tampa and Cleveland playing in LA for the title. You don't have to give me your winner if you don't want to, but if you feel free. All right. I am picking the Browns to get to the AFC Championship game. However, and I'm going to tell you, I'm going to preface this. I am picking them to lose the championship game because my predictions are usually wrong. So I hope in that sense that proves them to be right to get to the Super Bowl. So I like the Bills Browns prediction though. I think that's good. I think I'm going to go with the Rams and the Packers, with the Packers playing the Browns or playing the Bills, excuse me. But hopefully
like that. You know what? I like the Browns Bills matchup because it's just two teams, two blue collar teams that have kind of been on the struggle bus together for a very, very long time and are finally seeing that light at the end of the tunnel. So, Bills fans, it's tough to root against you, except for when the Browns are playing you. But I do like that a lot.
Amen. Especially week 1, they got the Steelers too.
I know. Let's go Bills on that one.
All right, let's go to a few more things here. Who do you think at the end of the 2021-2022 season wins the NFL MVP?
Speaking of Bills, I'm going to go Josh Allen.
Okay.
I think, he's just really, he's got the players, he's got the personnel, Stephon Diggs. I like their running game. I think that they're putting a lot of good talent around him, and he's just really coming into his own. He's got that stability within his offensive, just in the offensive room in general.
Sure.
I'm going to go Josh Allen on that one.
Okay. All right. Very good. How about defensive player of the year?
Myles Garrett.
Love it. Yeah, that's right. I'm sorry. You already said that. You already answered my question earlier. And then this one might be a tougher one, but how about rookie of the year?
That is tough because I mean, I think the obvious answer is to go quarterback, and you probably lean towards Trevor Lawrence. But when you kind of dig into it, I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm a huge Buckeye fan. I love Urban Meyer, but it doesn't seem to be that he's in the best position down in Jacksonville. They've got some talent, but I mean, that's typically what happens when a quarterback, for number one overall goes to a bad team. It's just the way that goes. So I'm going to head in a different direction here. I'm going to go Kyle Pitts. I think that he is an athletic, dynamic playmaker. And looking at what they have in Atlanta, Julio's out. Matt Ryan's really trying to probably revive a little bit of his career. They've got Calvin Ridley, who's very, very good, but they do need another playmaker. And I think he's going to get a lot of action there. They don't have a great running game. I think Kyle Pitts is going to get a lot of targets, which is going to boost his stats, which in turn will give him the Rookie of the Year.
Very good. Very good. Well, Ali, before I let you go, I got to ask you a couple things. So yes. One, you said you went to Capital University.
I did.
What was your degree in?
Business management.
Not communications?
No.
You might be the most well-spoken person that's ever been on this show. And I've had a lot of good guests. So I'm very impressed. So someone sign her up for a national podcast. Tell us one more time about your podcast.
Yes, it's the Here We Go Brownies podcast. You can check us out on Facebook, official Here We Go Brownies, and on Twitter at Go Brownies Live. And you can follow me, of course, Ali_Hysong, where you get some ridiculous jokes and some not so serious things. And of course, a little bit of Browns content here and there, but it's a show by the fans for the fans. It's just, like I said, anytime I get to talk a little bit of Browns, it's a win for me.
And I love it. And I thank you. We're recording this on a Wednesday night for Thursday's show, but you were nice enough to join us, late. It's fairly late on Wednesday night, so I appreciate it. Before you go, you kind of teased it a little bit. Can you end on a one-liner or like a dad joke for us? Because you're good at them.
Yeah, absolutely. I can. I'm trying to think. Let me think of a good one. One of my favorites here. I did put this on Twitter, so if you're hearing this again, I am sorry, but it's a really good one. What's the difference between Dubai and Abu Dhabi? People in Dubai, they don't like the Flintstones, but people in Abu Dhabi do.
Well done. Well done.
Cheesy.
I love it. We did a couple months ago, we dedicated a whole Father's Day episode to lame dad jokes. So next year for the lame dad jokes, I'm going to have you back to do that show.
Oh, and I'll be prepared. I'll have several ready to go. I got you.
Very good. Well, Ali, thank you again. And let's check in during the season. And if you ever need anything from us, feel free to reach out and we'll talk soon.
Hey, anytime. It was absolutely fun to be on here. Anytime you need me, I'll be around.
All right. Thanks, Ali. Have a great night.
You as well.